Hey everyone, it's patch 3.22 Trial of the Ancestors, and we have a new season to talk about, and oh boy, this season is a good one. This season is going to be very, very fun in my opinion. We have an absolute winner. So why don't we quickly talk about the mechanic for the season and what to expect. I will put some B-roll over some of this, but we'll also be looking at the page for it. Unfortunately, there's no patch notes yet, and they have not stated when patches are going to come out. So we don't have all the numbers, but we have the general scope of the league. And oh my God, this league is going to be good. I am very, very happy for it. So what is the new mechanic? Well, we're going to be journeying into the afterlife of the Karui, and we're going to be joining a tournament. Now, this is going to be very, very interesting. If you've played League of Legends and know about auto battlers, and you know what TFT is, well, this new mechanic is basically going to be an auto battler, but you get to join in. So it's like Blight, where Blight is a tower defense game, but you're also a tower yourself. We are going to have an auto battler in PoE. I will say GGG, quite innovative. I like it. You know what? It's definitely unique. I never would have expected an auto battler in a ARPG. I mean, we got a dungeon crawler, we got a tower defense. It makes sense. Fair enough. So how are we going to get there? We're going to have pennies, just like for Heist. We'll have silver coins. And from what they said in the reveal, that you will need to use a silver coin to start a tournament, and you'll be able to play the tournament until you lose or you win. And these are going to be tradable. So if you want, you can do this the whole season. You can get through the first zone, through the beach. You can find yourself a penny, and you can sit here from Act 1 and just play this the whole season. You don't actually need to play the game at all if you really don't want to. I don't know how much XP you're going to get, so you might want to actually go level, but you could theoretically sit here and play this the whole season. Now, how is this going to work? Well, you are going to have a starter team, and you'll be able to move around your team to either be on offense or defense, and you'll have some consumable slots. And the enemy team will also have the same thing. You'll be able to see what the enemy team is going to do before you start, so you can do all of your planning based on what they do. Now, your tokens on offense are obviously going to attack, and your tokens of defense are going to defend. Now, what are we defending? Well, there are some totems. And the way this is going to work is you have infinite respawns until your totem dies. If your totem dies, whatever unit was respawning from that totem will not be able to spawn anymore. And the winner is the team that destroys all of the enemy team's totems first. So if you have your units on attack, they will obviously go out and seek the enemy totems and try to destroy them. If you have them on defense, they'll sit by the totems and attempt to defend any sort of attacks. Now, what you can do with this is there are sort of lanes. So for example, if the enemy had all of their units up here in the north, and I put a unit down here in the south by itself, for example, as the enemy team has here, it might sneak around and destroy some totems without anything stopping it. Obviously, you can go and stop it yourself, but there would be nothing here to stop it. Now, if you were to win, then you get to talk to the captain of the enemy team, and you will be able to recruit some of the enemies on your team. And this just keeps going until you either die and lose or you win the whole event. Now, during this whole thing, you will have ranking, and the higher your ranking is, the harder the fights will be. We don't know if this is a permanent number that's going to stay here, so you can keep fighting harder and harder enemies for better loot, but you'll have access to a currency after every game that allows you to either buy troops, buy consumables. And the cool thing about these consumables is as soon as you place them down, if you don't use them in a round, you get to keep them until you actually use them, as well as you will have equipment for your team that you can give to each of your members to make them stronger in some sort of different way. Now, let's talk about the rewards. They really didn't show them too much, but the way the rewards are going to work is you will see every single team in the tournament, and you finish a tournament whenever you beat all the teams or you lose and get knocked out. And each team will have a different reward, and you'll be able to see what that reward for defeating them is beforehand. So you can choose to pick all the juicy teams first, or if a team is maybe a little bit hard, but has a good reward, you can choose to leave it until the end, have a really strong team, and then just mow through them for whatever reward you wanted. We're going to hope that the rewards from this are going to be really strong and we get quite a lot of currency, because if so, then this will be a very fun season. You know how people enjoy Heist and only sit there and do Heist all day? You know how in Sanctum League, more on that later, people sit there and just did Sanctums all day? Well, this might be the third option where you can sit here and do trials, tournaments, whatever you want to call them, all day and not really interact with the game. So there's potential for a really good season. Now, what are the new seasonal rewards that come out of this? Well, we have something new. We have skill tree tattoos and we have omens. So the skill tree tattoos are going to be items that you put on your skill tree to change some of the nodes. Each one is made for a specific node type, and they're going to give you quite powerful buffs. So for example, here, the tattoo of Nagahu is going to change a strength small passive point into 8% fire res. So a good example where this might be really strong is, let's say you are playing a Marauder. And typically for Marauder start, you either are doing this to get all the life and armor nodes, or you're simply just doing this to path out of the Marauder area as fast as possible. Well, let's say you don't actually care about this 10 strength, and let's say you don't care about the little bit of life that it gives you. Well, what you could do is you could turn these 3 strength nodes into 8% fire resistance each, which suddenly can give you a hefty chunk of fire resistance that you basically get for free while having a very minimum loss. There's also nodes for big points. So for example, this one here, the Loyal Tattoo, will turn one of your small passive strength points into a different point that gives you trigger level 20 summon spirit of Utula on taking a savage hit from a unique enemy. And a savage hit is anything that does at least 15% of your life. We don't know what the spirit does, but this might be potentially strong and you can only have one loyalty tattoo. Because of that, I assume there's going to be a dexterity and a intelligence version of this as well. And it'll be really interesting to see how strong those are. The one for dex gives you movement speed. So if you don't care about dexterity, well, if you're a ranger, log in, you can pick up a lot of movement speed. The typical ranger area sometimes looks something like this, where typically people path all the way down. Typically people might path all the way over here, and typically people might path like this. These are very, very common dexterity points for ranger. And if you see, this is 15 points. So if I didn't need the 150 dexterity, well, suddenly I have 30% movement speed. Suddenly I have a tier 2 movement speed roll on my tree, which is quite strong. Now, one thing about this is you can't go too heavy on it because you might not have enough attributes to put your gear on. But an interesting choice for this season might be a timeless jewel. Now, this might be super niche and you might not actually use this, but I'm going to still point it out. And what we have is an elegant hubris. And what this does is it turns all your small points into price of glory, which I'm curious if you can actually tattoo. I'm curious if these will keep remembering that they're dexterity nodes or not. But what this gives you is supreme ostentation, which makes it so you don't need attribute requirements. So potentially you could turn every single one of these into a 2% movement speed node, go over here potentially and put it here, or just delete some sort of keystone away from the rest of your tree and make it so you don't need attribute requirements anymore. And you can go ahead and just turn more of your dexterity into more movement speed, which is honestly really, really interesting. Moving on, the Ent one is added damage. Now the cool thing is this has no requirements on it. It's just added damage to everything. So I'm going to assume this is for minions. This is for spells, this is for attacks, this is for random effects. So for example, maybe like Choir the Storm would benefit from this. And what I'm interested in is this probably affects Herald the Thunder. So this might be a massive damage buff to Herald the Thunder Auto Bomber. And the really interesting one, which is going to be used for everything, turns a small passive point into 1% RMR. Now, this might give you a breakpoint to fit an extra aura in. Let's say you needed like 2% more reservation efficiency and like in a super late game build where you have a lot of min-maxing. You might be just slightly off. For example, a good example, this is Cast on Crit Forbidden Rites, where it needs such specific reservation amounts. This might give you the breakpoint that you needed. And well, this might be able to allow you to change decent chunks of your build and just fit in a bunch of RMR through small passive points instead. Lastly, we have a really, really strong one. It turns a plus 30 int node into +1 all int skill gems. Now, what I think you're going to be able to do with this is, for example, turn this one into +1 int and then anoint it. So if you're playing a build over here in the top right portion of the tree, you could just anoint this one, or maybe you can even go over here and get suppression and pick this one up itself. But you should be able to anoint these, which means that you can get them pretty easily in top builds. Or if you're a Templar, well, you're most likely pathing in this area anyway, so you can get it for free. Overall, these tattoos that they've shown are really strong and they can actually make some pretty interesting changes in builds. Let's move on to Omens. So Omens are going to be items that you carry in your inventory and they do something special when a condition is met. So for example, this one, on death, this is going to get consumed and make a portal. So this is basically cast on death portal for free in your inventory. If this can stack, this might be nice because that saves you 2 skill gems. You just have to buy like 50, 100 of these and just lose 1 inventory slot for free Castle Death Portal, which would be pretty good because this would replace your town portals. Next, we have this one, which gives you all of your flasks when you go on low life, which is kind of okay, I guess. Not very interesting, might be niche and hardcore. We have this one, which gives you Soul Eater when you level up. And we have a absolute banger. Using an Orb of Chance on an item will become unique if possible, and then this omen is destroyed. This is Trash to Treasure. Team Trash to Treasure is back in the game. They have finally added it back. Now, we have looked through potential Trash to Treasure items, and we don't really see where this is going to be very useful outside of Eternity Shroud called the Brotherhood Rings, because traditionally this was weighted. So for example, the chances of you getting a Mage Blood with this are going to be fairly low, or a Headhunter. So this is not going to be a free way for people to get a shit ton of Headhunters or Mage Bloods. So it's only going to really be used for maybe Aegises, but this will kind of be pretty cheap if that's the case, because Aegises are pretty common. But at least we have it back in the game. It would have been nice to have this for Crucible, but at least it's back in the game now. And lastly, the last currency that they've shown is Hinakora's Lock. Allows an item to foresee the result of the next currency item used on it. Modifying the item in any way removes the ability to foresee. So you can use this, and then it'll tell you what your X-Slam would give you, or what your Awakener's Orb would give you, or what your Chance would give you, or what your Regal would give you, which is really interesting. This potentially could change high tier crafting for forever. If this works with, for example, Awakening Orbs, this might change how you Awakening Orb. This might change how you Orb of Conflict. This might change all of crafting. Another interesting question I have about this is, how does this work with the crafting bench? What if I use this and I see that my X-Slam isn't going to give me tier 1 life? What if I then put it in the bench craft it, remove the craft, and then does that mean the foresight is changed? And if I use another one, it'll show me, oh, I'm actually going to get a tier 1 life, right? Can I keep re-rolling what it's going to give me by using the bench to potentially fish for exactly what I want out of an X-Slam or out of a Awakening Orb or Orb of Conflict or whatever the case might be? If so, this item is going to be worth quite a lot of money. If not, this item's not going to really be worth that much. We will see what happens. Moving on, they've also shown a few items. Now, we have a pretty meme belt here. Every 5 seconds, it gives you a random buff. There's 3 upsides and 3 downsides. I don't really see where this belt's going to be very good, but maybe a build uses it. We'll see. We have a ring that makes it so your flasks are instant when used at low life or low mana. This might be really good for Mom Miner because they really want to have a instantaneous mana flask. So this might be really strong for them, but otherwise this doesn't really have much use. And then lastly, we have a really strong item. This is going to be a great day 1, day 2, day 3 item, assuming it's common. This gives you, in the preview, they showed 910 max life. So I assume this might go to 1,000. This gives you up to 1,000 maximum life. There's no modifiers on any equipped items. Now, this is going to give you as much life as a full build would actually give you. So you could put this on and then not need a single roll on any of your gear. This also requires only level 53. So you can use this the second you get to maps and make a chaos or 2, assuming it's common. This also allows you to fit more damage on your rolls. For example, rings, prefixes are really good for damage, and this gives you an open prefix. Gloves really like prefixes as well, especially influence prefixes. This means you don't need to fish for tier 1 life. Shields would also be really good as well. Amulets would be really good as well. This overall is just going to be really good because it's basically competitive with actually getting tier 1 life on everything. If you don't need tier 1 life on your gear, that's actually suddenly substantially cheaper to find upgrades because tier 1 life and tier 2 life are valued substantially higher. This is going to be very fun to use potentially, and keep this in mind for day 1, day 2 as a potentially really strong item. Next up, I'm sure you probably already saw it, but Sanctum is coming back and we are getting itemized Sanctums. You'll be able to trade these with people. And the way this will work is if you do a Sanctum, once you finish a floor, the floor will then be re-itemized and you can actually trade that with people. So that means if you do floor 1 and floor 2 and you don't want to do floor 3, well, you can sell it to someone who will happily do floor 3 for you. And the interesting thing here is the relics will be kept inside of it. So you could potentially sell off a tome or buy tomes that are for no-hit runs that are already in floor 3. So you only have to do the last little bit and you can finish a no-hit run that way. Another thing to mention is these relics are now tradable as well. So you can min-max your relics just how you can min-max rogue gear and heist. And you will potentially also be able to buy no-hit runs from people. So if you were a Sanctum enjoyer and you enjoyed doing no-hit run carries, you don't have to do carries anymore. You just buy them yourself and spam no-hit runs. And that also means the ring is back. This is going to be amazing. just as how we have Heist, just how we have Delve, just how we have other mechanics that can sit there and only do that mechanic the whole season, we now have Sanctum. This is going to be amazing. If you're a Sanctum enjoyer, have fun. Go at it. You can get best in slot relics. You can make a lot of money. You can trade your bad Sanctums away. You could buy Sanctums if you want. Have fun with it. They even showcased a Sanctum with a Mirror Calandra in it that had 1 resolve left. You could technically sell that to someone for 5C, and they could have fun inting their Mirror of Calandra. Moving on, cannot wait to make a lot of videos on this. We are getting 16 new Keystones. This is going to be very fun. I'll be talking about this a lot over the next few weeks. The one that I'm really excited about is this one. It makes it so you have 1 explosion for your excavation, but it's really massive. In the preview video, they showed this basically hit the whole screen. So you can now 1-tap a whole expedition, and all the monsters and all the chests will benefit from all remnants at once, which makes this really strong. Another really cool one, for example, is this one, which allows you to craft ball side areas, which might make them really good. And the third one they showed off here is this one, which makes it so Maven invitations spawn extra bosses, which might be really interesting with Guardian farming and invitation farming. This might make it so you might be able to get multiple fragments at once and multiple invitations, multiple witnesses done at once. Next up, we have 14 new support gems. They showed off quite a lot of these on the video. And the cool thing about them is, well, one of them is Nimbus. We now have Nimbus for spells without needing Nimbus. We have returning projectile support. Now it does have a hefty 70% less damage on it, but that's at level 1. I could assume this will go to 50-40% less damage by level 20, which is still really good because that makes it very competitive with other support gems. We also have Frigid Bonds, which is, well, it's a link skill. It's a meme. But what it makes it do is the beam between you and your partner does damage, and actually quite a lot of damage. And well, if you want to play a bond build where you and your partner run around and kill things with it, you get it. It's a meme. Yep, it exists. It's definitely a skill in the game now. That's all I have to say about it. We'll get more of these teas over the next few weeks. Should be very interesting to see what they're like. Lastly, we have 2 reworks for both Guardian and for Chieftain. Now, I've made a separate video on these. I will link it below in the description if you want to hear my opinion on them. Overall, if you just wanted TLDR, not very good, but has potential. Maybe. We'll see. That's all about it for the major points of the patch. Lastly, there will be a race, and it's not going to be a ruthless race only. It will be hardcore solo self-found. And, well, if you like racing, have fun at the race. Overall, this season is going to be very, very good. We haven't seen patch notes yet, but I don't think the patch notes are going to delete this patch. I think it's going to be an overall really positive, really happy patch. I think a lot of people are going to have fun. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy playing this patch for quite a while. I'm certainly looking forward to doing Sanctum all day. I'm certainly looking forward to all of the new money-making strats I'm going to be able to show everyone. I'm excited to maybe sit there and play the auto battler all day. There's quite a lot of potential. We also have other fun things to do like Delve. I am going to have a lot of content. I'm going to be very excited. I'm very much looking forward to this. And if you are too, feel free to join me on Twitch to see me discuss everything and theory craft things and show off some league starters for this season. But if you're interested to play it yourself, the patch does come out on July 18th, and it should be pretty fun. Unfortunately, we do have to wait 3 weeks, but it is what it is. Gives us plenty of time, and we don't feel like we have to rush to figure out things for the next patch. Overall, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm always live on Twitch every day. I hope to see you guys there, and I will see you guys in the next video.